defy police to stage protests. Sheikh Gumi says bandits are planning to acquire anti-aircraft missiles to repel attacks by military. Nigerians pour encomium on first civilian governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, and later on the show, Governor Zulum present 13 million naira and SUV to Yoruba-born medical doctor who refused to leave Monguno Hospital. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Emeka Madunago. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us again. Let's begin. Let's talk about the clashes in Oyo State on Saturday and the need to avoid tension across the country. This must stop. Or what do you think, gentlemen? Babajide, Oyo State is now getting out of hand.
We've got to do something quickly. The tension in Oyo State was allowed to go on, and now we can see that we are on tenterhooks in Oyo State. The embers of ethnic tension must be doused immediately. The federal government, the governor of the state, and everyone concerned must do whatever it takes to ensure that things do not degenerate. Nigerians, by the letters of our constitution, deserve to live in any part of the country. They can. Any part of the country to earn their livelihoods. Nobody should push fellow Nigerians out of any part of the country where it has pleased them to earn their living. Whether those Nigerians are Hausas, whether they are Fulanis, whether they are Yorubas, or Ibibio or Igbos, no one has the right to intimidate another Nigerian or even kill a fellow Nigerian just because it's not of your ethnic stock. It has to end, because if we do not do something quickly to put an end to this nonsense, it may consume our country. A big crisis usually starts, at an embryonic level when you do not address it promptly. And we are asking that this should be addressed promptly. The crisis that has been festering in Oyo has to be addressed promptly, because it is now, we've seen the potential for it to become something much bigger. And where we have leaders, this shouldn't be happening. I saw pictures of what happened in Shasha markets, and I was really ashamed. We have reached the point in our country where this kind of attacks on each other has to stop. If we were Americans, what would we be doing? I don't think any American can even claim to say that he owns America, except the Indians, the native Indians. But they are cohabiting. One nation, different people cohabiting. People lay down their lives. People lay down their lives to keep our country one. Yet we are still fighting. Some people are making efforts to divide the country. It's our destiny to stay together as one people, and we must bear that in mind and bear the sacrifices of those who put their lives on the line so that Nigeria can become one indivisible and great nation. So all our leaders who are concerned should wade in and ensure that this does not degenerate. That is
What do you read between the lines? Oyo State is getting out of hand.
It's unfortunate that we've not been able to get cohesion. We've not been able to see ourselves, beyond what some irresponsible politicians over the years have tried to cast us into the mold they've tried to put us into. That's why we've had killings in the country, going far back. Going far back before Nigeria's independence. And then you now come down to today. You still see people regarding themselves as people have lived together, and we talk about when there was xenophobia in South Africa, we openly condemned it. But don't we have worse things happening here? The point is this, you see, so long as people feel have this superiority complex. What is worrying men? What is causing this superiority complex? That, oh, my people are better than your people. Oh, we have a right to what belongs to you. And that should never exist, because, you see, migration has been a major part of history. Can any race or any group in the world, any nationality in the world today claim that they descended from heaven? That this is where we have been for as long as the world has existed? No, it's been a history of migration across, across places. But the issue is that today we find ourselves in different locations. Why do we now have to allow politicians? Look at what the governor said the other day. Very provocative. That headers can use AK-47. Does the Constitution grant right to citizens to carry guns? The answer is no. Not talk of a high caliber offensive weapon like AK-47. And don't forget, government is supposed to have monopoly of violence. But today, we have politicians, stateless, entities within the state struggling for space with the government. In part, it's part of the failure of governance.
I think that's even the reason the Minister of Defense said that governors must play their part in ending the tension that we have in our land.
Yeah,
they can't end this by some of the irresponsible statements that they are making. Indeed, herdsmen harming themselves with guns was the fallout of cattle rustling.
Yeah, oh sure.
You can't entirely blame herdsmen. And it's not even in Nigeria alone. Even in Kenya, people want to rustle their cattle, and then they decided that, okay, let us arm ourselves.
The rustlers were like the terrorists.
You see even the Maasais carrying guns. Even they train their women to be able to handle weapons. Because people will come and rustle your cattle. So you must be able to protect yourself to a large extent. But assault weapons of the level of AK-47 is dangerous, because people can also turn the AK-47 to something that they now use to rob other people, not simply to protect themselves.
Yes.
But even at that, as leaders, governors must find a way to talk to one another. We can't have a situation in which the tension in our country, it is governors that are worsening it. We already have enough ethno-religious tensions in our country. So worsening it over little issues is not what we want to see. And these governors need to behave themselves. They need to behave themselves across board, whether you are from the north or from the south. We have to talk to ourselves. When these things degenerate, it is the innocent Nigerians that eventually die. That's why one philosopher, yes, a lot of them, their children are abroad. They don't suffer. Yes, that's why a philosopher said, unfortunately, in all wars, those who die are those who do not deserve to die. So our people don't deserve to die over little disagreements that we can resolve. Two persons fighting. Get the leaders of the market can come in to say, look, gentlemen, why are you fighting? Oh, and if someone dies, you can just come around, calm the thing. Not that it will now lead to people killing one another. It's similar to what happened in Kano in 1995.
Okay.
So, but it has to end. It's important that we stay as one.
Moving on now. The die was cast when some youths planned the protests at the Lekki toll gates, and the authorities vowed to resist such at a time like this. So when the protesters under the edges of Occupy Lekki toll gate showed up on Saturday, they were met with some resistance from the police. A handful of the protesters that were arrested, including ace comedian Mr. Macaroni, have been granted bail. Let's share what transpired with you at the Lekki toll gates as captured by TVC News correspondent Ola Awakon.
The day began with uncertainty in the air. Heavy presence of security in this place that usually has mainly speeding vehicles was a sign that all may not be the same. But those who said they will occupy the toll gate were not in sight yet. As the day progressed, journalists began to arrive, armed with tools of their trade. Soon, the first set of protesters came around. They did not have a field day as they may have anticipated because the police intervened sometimes with a little chase. Even the vehicle housing the protesters decided to protest too. Then calm returned again with journalists looking out for what will happen next. The Commissioner of Police came on a tour.
I won't talk now because I'm just monitoring. I still have to get to the other end so that I come back and address you at once. So please, I'm still moving around. Up to Lekki and there, up to Brahadisoya. You want to see all these axes. I'll be coming all the way from Ikeja everywhere now. So that after I finish that, my tour of inspection, I can now come and address you jointly. So that's going to be, it's not going to be...
He left promising a detailed briefing after he had gone round the sensitive locations.
Thank you.
There's nothing else to say. Only saying this today.
Moments after the commissioner left, another group of protesters surfaced. Theirs was a demand for justice.
Justice! What do we want? Justice! What we want? Justice!
The movement did not last long as the police again came and took them away.
You know what? You're in trouble. Are you a protester? Yes, I am.
This journalist was almost arrested.
I had my ID card around my neck. Then one of the officers stopped me, asking me who I was. Am I one of the protesters? I was showing my ID card and at the same time holding my phone with my other hand. But the officers wouldn't listen. They said I'm one of them. They collected my phone at that moment until another officer intervened. It was due to the intervention of the other officer that led to the release of my phone.
Another journalist feels the presence of security operatives was able to successfully abort the planned protest.
In a country like Nigeria, if there is a mass protest that chase the devil out, you will definitely see another good outcome that save the devil. That's Nigeria for you. Everything we have pros and cons is a two-way, either being sponsored or not being sponsored. So it is expected, but thank God they too have shelved their protest so that the two will not clash. But thank God everywhere is peaceful today.
We all went back to the waiting game, hoping the Commissioner of Police will return for the briefing. But that didn't happen before this report was filed. All seems normal now, but for the unusual number of policemen. Whether the hashtag Occupy Lekki Toll Gate ends here or not, the message is clear that the event of October last year, particularly that of the night of the 20th, may not be forgotten for a long time to come. Ola Awakon, TVC News, Lagos.
Okay, Babajide, let's start with what triggered this second round of protests. The decision of the panel, the judicial panel of inquiry to actually, allow LCCI to go ahead, to say, look, continue to run your business. Now, I went for a briefing on Thursday, organized by LCCI and LCC, and I discovered that, look, it's not the way people are saying it. That LCC is owned by Lagos State government, and Lagos State is paying 4 or 5 banks in billions to get money back. It was something that was under build, operate, and transfer for 35 years, and Lagos State repossessed it when the person could not fulfill the agreement.
During the Ambode governorship.
It's
they still think it's some individuals who own
that.
Ignorance is such a terrible thing. But you see, beyond the fear that the protest could be hijacked, thereby leading to destruction of properties and loss of lives, there's no big deal in a few people going to that place,
registering their displeasure over anything.
There's no big deal about it. Protest is an integral part of democracy. It's just that fear, and anyone who was witness to the extreme destruction carried out in Lagos would not want a repeat of this kind of
Still some stakeholders
protest.
in Lagos.
Because the protests allowed evil people to carry out their nefarious activities, which led to the destruction of business premises. They've ruined some people for life without knowing it. Yes, many of us supported the idea of the End SARS protest. I have no regret. People say all kinds of things. You have not learned your lesson. Your building, your premises was destroyed. Yes,
we are victims.
We are victims.
We are victims.
But the people that set ablaze our business premises are hoodlums. We were not, when some of us chose to support the idea of reforming the police, and it cannot be a bad idea to reform the police, we weren't supporting hoodlums. We saw that they were not hoodlums. And when they overstayed their welcome on the road, we told them that it was time to leave. So what are they going on and on about? That, oh, Jide was praising NSAS protesters, this and that. As my own younger sister, the son was a victim of irresponsible behavior by SARS men. And you want me to fold my arms and not condemn aberrant behavior by the police? No. Any day that there is a need to reform the police, I will support it. But it's not the Jagidi-Jagan behavior that I supported. None of us saw that coming.
Destruction.
And we've had protests in our country. It's not every protest that leads to this kind of thing. So if the protest is about something good, we'll push for it. That was what happened. Even some governors, like the governor of Kwara State, he even went on a march with the protesters. Are you going to say the Kwara governor was a fool? He accompanied them to the police headquarters to register their protest. We saw the governor of Lagos State even addressing them and saying that your demands are legitimate. We had the VP saying your demands are legitimate.
Took their letter to President Buhari.
Yes, and the president received it. If the president felt that, no, these are just a bunch of hoodlums, will he receive their letter? At that time, there was no big deal about it.
Legitimate.
But it was hijacked, and then for supporting reform of the police at the beginning, they are trying to cast us as idiots. No, we supported what we felt was right. Any day, if there's a need,
and it was
for it, we will support.
It was misinterpreted in some quarters in the country, as in some people actually saw it as a protest that actually clamored for, for the removal of the president.
In Nigeria, you have a lot of people who benefit from twisting narratives, and then, conditioning narratives, So, of course, there are people who make money from such things. I mean, that is their stock in trade. You find them on social media, taking things this way and that way, bringing up spurious campaigns, pretentious, tendentious, so-called patriotic campaigns. But you see, beneath it is just to say we are here, push something to our side. So you don't need to really bother about such people because it's been a long history. Of course, we saw all that happened during the military era. How, activists were fighting, actively engaged in the fight to end military rule. But what happened? There were people who were going about saying that Abacha must stay for life, that the military will be there, that there was no other person who could be president after Abacha.
Honestly,
as for Abacha, you had Daniel Kanu. But since Abacha died on June 8, 1998.
Where's Daniel Kanu now?
I don't know, maybe it's in Abuja or something. Between then and now, how many presidents have we had? And some people said Abacha was the only person who could rule Nigeria. So, you see, you will expect that in a big society like Nigeria. But be that as it may, I think the police should try to reform their ways of handling people. Dehumanizing protesters. What was that for? What were they trying to show? That, okay, if you ever try to protest again in Nigeria, we'll ship in a policemen protested in Katsina. We didn't see anybody saying the protest will be hijacked. We didn't see anybody remove their shirts and throw them in a black maria. Treat people with decency. For me, allow people to protest. But you can say, okay, within so and so precincts, within so and so limit, they have a grievance. Yes, the Lagos State government owns the Toll Plaza and all of that. And then there have been issues with decisions by the judicial panel. All of these things have been back and forth and all of that. And you know, behind the scenes, there have been people who have been trying to say, no, can we, you know, move back a bit this way? Can we do this? Can we do this? You know, somebody like Ebonlo Adegboruwa has really tried a lot. You know, you've had people who have been trying to intervene. But you see the police coming out saying talking about a show of force. For what? Were you expecting people to come with guns or with fighter jets? Or what was all that for? For what?
Don't forget that we had police stations that were actually destroyed.
What led to it? No, let us face the fact. While the peaceful protests were on, thugs attacked the protesters. Let's not go away. In Lagos, in Abuja, people were stabbed. Is it true or false? Where are those people who were seen with the thug that was captured with a machete? That was captured. Why have the police not arrested him? All the thugs that came out and were attacking people, that stabbed people, that burnt a car shop in Abuja. We saw things on social media now. We saw one movement, they called themselves movement for something. We saw what they said. We saw what some prominent politicians were saying then, what they put on WhatsApp. Why haven't these people been arrested?
Okay, I have Barrister Inibehe Effiong joining us. Thank you for joining us. Hello.
Hello, Barrister.
Thank you. I'm with you.
Okay. Yeah. What's your reaction to the protesters that were arrested yesterday?
The attack on the protesters was not surprising to me because the police and the Lagos State government made it abundantly clear that they will not tolerate exercise of the civil and democratic rights by the protesters. But I have listened to the commentaries, you know, that have been made on Journalist Hangout. But one point I want to emphasize is this. Even when it is believed that there will be breakdown of law and order, let us assume for a second that the police had credible, reasonable basis or evidence that hoodlums, in quotes, were going to infiltrate the protests, or that the protest was going to result in violence, in arson, or loss of lives. What is the appropriate response? Section 94, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act, as amended in 2015 by the National Assembly, answers that question. And it states clearly that the role of the police during political rallies and processions, protests and so on, shall be limited, I emphasize, shall be limited to provision of security to those who are engaged in those activities. Therefore, even when the police says there will be breakdown of law and order, even when they say, oh, we don't want public properties, public assets, or private properties to be destroyed, to be attacked, as we unfortunately witnessed during the last NSAS protest. What is required of them under the law is to ensure that that protest is peaceful. It is not for them to say, we will not allow you to protest. Don't come out, we are banning protests. That is a way of telling Nigeria that we are living under a dictatorship. You cannot be telling people not to protest. That is why you are known as the Nigeria Police Force. That is why you are a law enforcement agency. You are there to enforce the law. You are not there to circumvent the constitutional right of people to protest. So that is one point that, you know, Nigerians must get very clearly. Now, this particular protest, as we have seen, and as, you know, the commentators have rightly observed this afternoon, was entirely peaceful. How many people were even, we didn't have to up to 500 people there. There were just a handful of people. And we saw the deployment of hundreds of policemen. We saw armored personnel carrier. We saw policemen in, you know, heavily armed, going there in a show of force. At the time that the security is ravaging the southwest, at the time that Oyo State is burning, at the time that bandits have taken over the northeast and other part of the country. So what I am saying is that this is a government that has not gotten its priorities right.
Yeah.
You cannot be deploying that kind of force to attack citizens who are merely aggrieved with the proceedings at the Lagos Judicial Panel, which I have participated at some point. Now, what is even the argument about? What people are saying is this, that lives were lost at the toll gate. It has now been established, it has now been admitted that contrary to the earlier position of the Nigerian government and the Lagos state government, soldiers were actually deployed to the toll gate, live bullets were fired, people were shot, people were killed, people sustained injuries.
Okay. Wow. Barrister Inibe Effiong there. And Babajide, looking at what he has raised, the right of people to protest. Those people that I saw yesterday, they weren't carrying arms, they weren't carrying guns, and young Nigerians. Okay, somebody like Mr. Macaroni make good of his threat. It still came out, you know, to sensitize the people. He was arrested.
One of the reasons they didn't want the protest to happen was because of the COVID-19 safety protocols in place, for which the president...
There's a law.
Yes, the president also came up with a body of regulations to guide our conduct. The fear was also that at this time...
Anybody as a lawyer should know that.
Yes, at this time, because it's validated by the Anti-Quarantine Act. At this time, if you have so many people gathered in a place, maybe in their thousands, of course it will cause the coronavirus to spread. Coronavirus spiked, the cases spiked in the US after the Black Lives Matter protests across the country. The crowds were huge, and many people raised concerns that after those rallies and protests across the country, those walks, that there will be a spike, and that happened. From that point, they could no longer control the situation. So they felt that, look, beyond even the prospect of this thing being hijacked, like it happened the last time, that it could also lead to an escalation or a spike in COVID-19 cases that are already battling with. God forbid, we have a situation in South Africa where about 678 people will die in one day. If we get to that point that we can't manage the COVID-19 cases in our country, we'll be in trouble, because our health system cannot handle an explosion of COVID-19. So I agree that the police should actually provide security for people who are protesting, because the Constitution guarantees the right to protest, you know. But I also know that there are emotional and logical issues involved in this thing. Policemen saw their colleagues killed, some of them roasted and eaten by a band of very stupid people in Oyo State. And then a lot of their, at least up to 17 police stations in Lagos State alone, set ablaze. So it must have caused some of the policemen to overreact, because in fairness to some of their officers, in some videos I saw their officers say, treat them with respect, don't beat them, treat them with respect. But some of them still went overboard, and those videos showing Mr. Macaroni and other people undressed to their loins is irresponsible. It doesn't dignify us as a country.
Day before, yesterday in the morning, I saw Mr. Macaroni when he was doing his live broadcast, and I saw him. He was even wearing his face mask, and the police, they were trying to come close to him. He was trying to tell them about social distancing, but by the time he was roundly humiliated, They forgot everything about social distancing.
Even some of the people,
some of them were sweating. When you have people sweating, you put them together.
Contacting coronavirus.
Yes, that is why I said the police was tactless. The police was tactless.
They wanted to eliminate him. I agree with you.
Yes, but the thing is, at the end of the day, it is not only in Nigeria that they see these videos. Outside of our country, they see this.
There were foreign journalists.
It does not dignify the police as a unit. It will now validate the argument of those who said at that time that it's not the SARS alone that you need to reform, that the entire force needed to be reformed.
And police brutality.
Yes. So this is the thing. You don't first undress a man.
Okay, look at the way you
after you've arrested the man, you don't need to undress. And that's why you see that a lot of the people that they parade, they first remove their shirts. I don't know. You don't need to first dehumanize a man. No. Look at that woman, the one in hijab, saying, look, arrest me. A lot of them offer themselves to be arrested. Because look, these guys, at the end of the day, we need to learn to manage.
Because from the people I'm saying now, these are not hoodlums. These are not hoodlums.
No, they are not. Just like the ones who started the protest at that time.
Look at, why would you push somebody like this? Why would you push somebody like this? Who is that man in white? You know, all these things. Okay. Then why would you use the task force? What is it?
Yeah. Okay. That was the fact that is the RRS.
That's why some of us are calling for the removal of that word force from the Nigeria police. So that they know it's an agency.
If you remove it,
to need the paradigm shift.
If you remove the name, you don't remove
psychological reformation.
Okay, my producer, Unibe is still there. Unibe, so ultimately, are you aware of the Quarantine Acts signed by the president?
Absolutely. I was among those who advocated that there was need for some form of legislative instruments to back the executive policies to control COVID. I am aware of the Quarantine Act. I'm also aware of the regulations issued by the president. I'm also aware of the Lagos State Public Health Law and, of course, the executive order issued by Governor Sanwo-Olu. But the point is this. I have seen the charge sheet filed yesterday. When you look at what the police is charging them for, they claim they violated COVID-19 protocols. For me, that is ridiculous because how many of these persons were even arrested? They said, oh, they had a gathering of more than 50. How many protesters are standing there today?
We might have to call you back during the week. We don't really have time. It's a developing story. We might have to still call you back. Thank you for your intervention. Thank you so much. Now, moving on. It appears Nigeria failed to build the water of armed banditry when it is still ankle deep, and now we are swimming in a resulting flood. The Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi has let it be known that the bandits are saving money to buy anti-aircraft missiles to repel military attacks. Are we not in for a rough ride, Babajide? Because Boko Haram, I know, the Boko Haram don't have access to, they don't have air power. But I know they might have anti-aircraft missiles, but these people are the one advocating for amnesty, that government should grant them amnesty and everything. And these ones that are negotiating with Sheikh Gumi, they are threatening the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria.
No, some of the actions are extremely similar to Boko Haram's modus operandi. Because once you come after them, they also will tell themselves that the army is a legitimate target. So, because it's warfare, whether we believe it or not, what is going on in the Northwest is warfare in the real sense of the word. So, at this time, we must not rule anything out or rule anything in. Because if these guys have access to some missiles that we know terrorists had used in the north, I mean, in the north, in the Arab world before now, we will be in trouble. We will be in And the truth is, the black market for weapons is a very active one. It's
not regulated in Nigeria.
It's nowhere. There's nowhere in the world. There's nowhere in the world. If you
our border, I wanted to talk about border.
Why has the war in Congo not ended? Because there is consistent access to weapons. People who mine diamond illegally, you know, that is one of the richest countries in the world.
Yeah.
In terms of resources, God gave them virtually everything, even timber.
So backward.
But there is no peace. That's why those who are looking for war in our country, they need to be told about the consequences of war. Stupid people sit in their houses, grab a telephone, and start using their data to try to divide our country, to try to push for war. They need to be told the consequences of war. For example, if any of these individuals get hold of the Stinger missile, the shoulder-launched Stinger missile, they will bring down an aircraft. It's as simple as there are places on their shoulders. And it's so easy to carry around. Somebody could be inside an hotel, not far away from the airport, and launch the shoulder-launched surface-to-air missile. They will bring down a plane. There are all kinds of missiles like that. Because it is heat. It is the heat that it follows. So
these people, they intend raising money from the
let me tell you what. You know why I believe some of what Sheikh Gumi has said. I was speaking with a very big person in one of the northwest states, who is also familiar with negotiating with these people. And he said, Jide, 90% of the money that they take from ransom is spent on buying weapons. So these guys are aiming to be bigger than who they are. I've seen people dismiss this thing, but that same person has warned me that in the southwest, if you make the mistake of allowing these guys to settle down the way they have settled down in Zamfara, the way they have settled down in Kaduna, they killed about 7 soldiers just yesterday. In fact, I saw a video of one of the soldiers crying because one of the victims is supposed to get married in a few weeks. And the soldier was crying. He said, what do I tell your wife? What is all this? What do I tell your wife? I have the picture. But these are not things that we can show on TV. He said, what do I tell your wife? This thing is degenerating. Travelers have been attacked in Kaduna. This thing has not gone down. So security is collapsing. It's a fact that we have to admit. We have to tell ourselves there is a need to come together. Stakeholders, how do the approach must be multifaceted. How do we defeat these guys? Because at the rate they are going,
they are not even Nigerians.
And in but a lot of them are Nigerians. Let's not.
Nigerians.
I'm telling you, I spoke with them now.
Those bandits.
I interviewed them. I know if I see any of these guys who is not in Nigeria, I will know. I've interacted with them. I did a documentary on them. I met them. I spoke with them. And it's this same group of people. A lot of them are Nigerians. People know them. They know their names. They know their families. So the notion that, oh, it's just, no, that's not true. They know some of these guys even from the cradle.
Wow.
Before they suddenly became bandits.
Product of all this Samajiri thing.
Now, don't also forget that Shekau had a hand in the kidnapping of the Kankara boys.
Of course.
He engaged them. He engaged one of the groups. 3 groups were involved in the Kankara boys
abduction.
He engaged one of them. At the end of the day, when government moved in and spoke with them about the need to let these boys go, it was 2 against 1. Shekau was now running a task release the boys, you know, but it was too late. There is already some form of relationship between Boko Haram and these people.
Of course.
Boko Haram already has bases in Niger State. Shekau published picture of his own men inside the forest in Niger. We are playing with fire. We deceive ourselves. We think the activities of Boko Haram are simply limited to the northeast. The Kankara affair should let us know that they have left the northeast. And there are factions. Even the IG admitted that Ansaru, one of the factions of Boko Haram, is operating in the north central. So what are we talking about? Believing that, oh, it's simply northeast. That's a narrative for people who are not monitoring proceedings. You can't deceive us with that. Some of their modus operandi, the people who attacked the emir, I think of Portiskum, they are former members of Boko Haram. It's the Boko Haram faction. This thing now has become a full-blown criminality. It's not simply, oh, we want a state of our own. No, they've gone fully into kidnapping for ransom. In fact, I heard that these days, when they kidnap people here, Boko Haram will be negotiating with these smaller kidnappers that they should release the victim. Yes. Because they know that they can make more money when it's that victim is released to them. And that was why the Americans moved quickly when their citizen was kidnapped. You know, so we must not wait until they acquire all these weapons. Because already they are killing soldiers, they are killing civilians. So if they now have game-changing anti-aircraft missile, we are in trouble.
Do you think we should attempt to dialogue with these people at all?
I think we've gone beyond the stage of dialogue. Because if you look at it, first of all, like we said earlier, the major problem here is that the governors in the north are not even united on what to do about these people. El-Rufai is saying he has his own view. Ganduje has his own view. The Zamfara governor has his own view. The Katsina governor has his own view. I think that's the point to begin from. Let them come together and address this issue. Speak with one voice. That is one. Secondly, these guys cannot be, like I said earlier, it is the state that is constitutionally empowered to have a monopoly of violence. But when the state allows a failure of governance and stateless individuals now take over this space, you will now say, you will see all kinds of, different kinds of variants, just like COVID-19, variants of COVID-19. These are variants of criminal enterprise. They've now turned crime into an enterprise. So the thing is that wherever they are, by whatsoever name they are, they must be flushed out. They must be flushed out. Whatever means the United
there should be no room for negotiation.
No, I don't believe in I don't believe there should be negotiation because they are not negotiating with victims. They are killing victims. We heard the story of the farmer who was killed in Odoaba or something in Oyo State after a ransom of 1.65 million had been paid by his family. He was still killed. Then we heard the story of an ambulance driver who was taking a corpse somewhere. He was shot and killed. The brother of the dead person was abducted. What is all this? You can't negotiate with such people. El-Rufai has told us, Sheikh Gumi, even though he's talking of amnesty, but the issue is this, amnesty for whom? The Zamfara State governor has told us, okay, some are surrendering. But we've seen the experience of Katsina State. The same people who claim that they surrendered weapons, the same people went back kidnapping. I think the silence of the president and commander-in-chief is worrisome. He must declare war on these people. He must declare war on these people. If the president and commander-in-chief declares war on these people, listen, it will be clear that this thing will not be allowed to degenerate to the level of Boko Haram. We can't afford, because if you even see what experts are saying, that we already have an insurgency, a second insurgency in the northwest. Can we cope with two insurgencies? The answer is no. Then we now also have a lower level of insurgency in the south. Okay. So what are we talking about? So that means you even you see people in a bus carrying bags. You don't even know what is inside. You don't even know whether it's bandits or terrorists who are migrating to other places. The government must declare war on them and say, We will not tolerate this.
Babajide, I want us to put, I want us to shed light into the governor of what the governor of Bauchi said, and he has been getting responses from some of his colleagues that are even governors. So, in light of this, what was he trying to say?
Well, you see, because we always put emotion over logic, and a lot of us are guilty of it. The average Nigerian is a tribalist, and he sees everybody as a tribalist. No matter how, as a journalist, you try to stay in the middle, to try to steer things in an objective manner, because someone sees your name as looking like a name from the Southwest, he already imagines that you are from the Southwest and that you are a tribalist, you are supporting your people from the Southwest. They don't listen. When you are making a point that clearly does not suggest that you are backing a particular part of the country. Because I don't know, for me, for example, I don't see how any sensible person can look at me and say, Jide is a tribalist, he's supporting the Southwest. When, at what time in my life will I begin to do that? Everyone knows that the bulk of my friends are there in the north. I visit northern states much more than I visit any other part of the country. But the first thing people do, because they in their heart, they are parochial, they are tribalists, the first thing that is the way you are. The same way that the average Nigerian thinks that every Nigerian has a price. Because he is cheap. Because he is cheap.
Yes.
He can take money from the devil.
That's false equivalence.
He thinks that every Nigerian journalist or every individual has a price. He has not investigated you. But that notion he wants it to stick. And when you disagree with a Nigerian, he does not think that you are entitled to your opinion. No, you must be on his side. If you are not on his side, you hate the president. If you are not this, you are a Brian Village journalist. If you do not support him, you are a tribalist, you are supporting the other people. The governor of Bauchi has a point, and I said it earlier. When this whole first and foremost, a lot of the people became bandits. They didn't just make up their minds to become bandits. It's in response to consistent attacks on their cattle, and the security forces, rather than help, some of them began to even extort money from them.
Or looking the other way.
Sometimes too, when they even, because a lot of this, there have been engagements in the past where they put these bandits and they talked about their problems. Some of them, even some of them were even illegally detained. The governor of Katsina had to get the police to release some of them. Extortion by security agencies, stealing of their cattle by criminals. When government couldn't do anything about it or refused to do something about it, many of them began carrying guns. Now, to protect yourself and your cattle, the first thing that the headsman would think of is to carry a gun. And it's not limited to Nigeria alone. You see pictures, because a lot of the pictures of the Maasai and some Fulani from outside our country that you see, many of those pictures of women you see carrying guns, they are not Nigerians. Guiding cattle, they are not Nigerians. But they too have learned over the years to protect themselves by carrying a gun. Now, if the governor of Bauchi State wanted to make the point that, look, our headsmen also come under attack from criminals. Because even Mieti Allah admitted it, that they said it, that look, we too are victims of these people. If he wanted to make that point, he would have made the point. But to say that, generally speaking, headsmen must go around carrying AK-47, it makes no sense. Not even at this time when there is so much tension in the land. Politicians, leaders must know what to say and when to say it. If what you are going to say will not help to bring down tension in our country, then close your mouth. If what you say will worsen the ethnic north-south divide, why not just close that mouth? So this is the thing. Now, to worsen things, you see now the governors are attacking themselves. The governor of Ondo attacking him and saying that he does not, is not worthy of holding public office. That's a man who is the longest serving FCT minister in Nigerian history. After all these years, is not worthy of holding. Yes, he may have said something that appears provocative, but there's a reason why he said it. But in today's Nigeria, we cannot propose that all headsmen must carry weapons of the caliber of AK-47. In fact, that's the road to Golgotha.
We can't do.
Yes, you can say, they need to protect themselves, but to say they should carry AK-47, there's no country that will permit that. And the president, I remember President Buhari even said, when he went to Mambila to make peace between the Fulani and the natives, he said that any Fulani headsman carrying AK-47 should be arrested. The president made that directive. Some of this, when we say Mr. President must do this, it's the security agencies that should do their work. Yeah. He did not tell them not to do their work. He did not tell them not to do their work, but most of the time they are reluctant to do their work.
What's your reaction to the Kaduna State, Bauchi State governor's comment?
To me, I find it it's unnecessary. It was very unnecessary. I'm trying to choose my words carefully, because what the governor said was, is it the invasion of villages? Are you telling me that the invasion of whole villages, burning of farms, kidnapping and all that is about cattle rustling? Definitely there are criminal elements among these people. It has been admitted. So when you make such a blanket statement, what you even do is that you forget also that when you talk about heading, if we are to look at the English word, heading, a headsman, somebody who heads livestock. Now that means if somebody has a large, a large number of livestock, so of course he should go and get an AK-47. So you will now create a ground. What you are trying to do is to encourage criminals to come up with weapons and then turn our society, move us down the Hobbesian path. What he said was very, very wrong. So, and again, there have also been complaints about security agents conniving with these kidnappers, shooting at vigilantes. We heard what happened in Oyo about a DPO shooting an Amotek operative. All of these things. Who are these security agents serving? Whose interest are they serving? Because they make us even wonder what is happening. We saw last year when during the lockdown there was this rumor of 1 million boys that they were going to attack neighborhoods, and people slept on the streets. I was one of those. We slept on the streets, guarding our streets, guarding our neighborhoods. That was the police.
Did you not see the 1 million boys?
Well, they said, there were reports that they were seen in some places in Ifako and some places. But the issue is this: when you have such things, these security agents are supposed to secure Nigerians. They should never take sides. And the other thing is that what the Bauchi State governor said, no, it's unacceptable.
It's good.
Unacceptable.
All right. One of Nigeria's most successful governors and a frontline progressive, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, died on Thursday, 11th of February, at the age of 91. And the rain of tributes greeting his departure is yet to stop. In the numerous eulogies to mark his passing, the first civilian governor of Lagos State is described as a trailblazer and lover of the masses, whose achievements in office from 1979 to 1983 will be hard to surpass. Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, 1979 to 1983, I saw a lot of Nigerians, talking about this Jakonde, that Jakonde, and everything revolves Baba Kekere.
Yes.
In Lagos
They used to call him Baba Kekere at that time.
LKJ.
Not that he was such a pint-sized man.
No.
Maybe what they meant was that he was a younger version of Awu.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
There were
Okay.
a good number of them who were like heirs to Awo's throne.
Yeah.
Bola Ige, you know, and a lot of Northerners, you know, like Bola Ige because of his impeccable Hausa. In fact, he said that Hausa was the first language put in his mouth because he grew up in Zaria. So, you know, he could speak Hausa much better than he could speak Yoruba. You know, that was an usually brilliant man. Who speak Latin as well.
Oh, yeah.
Was also
and he could sing well.
Yeah. So, Alhaji Jakande was clearly at that time the poster boy. Among the governors, he was clearly the poster boy. He was the pick of the pack, and I would say that by his vision, by his commitment, we demonstrated traits that would make you want to describe him as someone ahead of his time. Because it takes someone ahead of his time to think that we needed metro line at the time that that he went for it. Metro line,
look at what
the value of it, just 6 million, I think, at that time.
At that time, yeah.
That time.
If we had metro line in Lagos today.
But the military takeover of December 31st, 1983, effectively put an end to that program when we should have allowed it to go on. And we even paid a penal fee, a very high penal fee,
yes.
You know, higher than the value of the contract.
Today we are grappling with the green line. And
you can imagine if we now, if that country had been allowed, if the government of Bola Ahmed Ashiru, the military government of Bola Ahmed Ashiru, had been allowed to continue with it, it would have solved a lot of the transport problem in Lagos, because I'm sure we will have even built on that to do something greater, you know. But it was not allowed to continue that program. And the truth is, Jakande was a very simple man. You see politicians feign simplicity, pretend that they are simple in nature. But I don't think he was feigning simplicity. Some of them feign simplicity, but they steal money and they go to hide the money somewhere. Jakande was never like that. I don't think I ever saw Jakande, because I first saw him in the home of my mother's auntie, the late Chief Victoria Ayedogbon. Because Chief Victoria Ayedogbon was a very close friend of J.S. Olaweyin, and J.S. Olaweyin was the best friend of Jakande. He would travel from Lagos to come and see J.S. Olaweyin in Ilorin, and J.S. would now bring him to the home of Chief Mrs. Ayedogbon at that time in his Toyota Crown.
Yeah,
he bought that Toyota Crown. He bought the same Toyota Crown for his friend.
Yes.
You know, J.S. Olaweyin lost the primaries of the UPN, in 1983. 1983, yeah. Lost it to Cornelius Adebayo. But despite that, he remained Jakande's best friend, and Jakande was consistently coming to Ilorin to see his friend. So, and he bought that same type of Toyota Crown for J.S. Olaweyin. Both of them will come visit my mom's auntie, and we were little boys at that time. We were seeing those governors easily in the living room because I lived with them. So it was fun, and I never saw him put on an agbada or a babariga until he died. Maybe there were occasions when he did. I didn't witness it. And when you are talking about even the progress that Abuja has seen, a lot of the infrastructure development happened under Abacha. IBB started some of those projects. Abacha continued. For example, the biggest estate project you know, in Africa.
Yeah, Garki.
Gwarimpa.
Yes.
It was under Abacha that they did it.
Yes.
And then the phase 2, it was Minister of Wars. And the phase 2 of the federal, I mean, the civil service, what was it called? Was the secretariat, federal secretariat, was also during Abacha's time. Jakonde was the man who executed those projects. So we've lost an exemplary politician. I just hope that we can find such people.
Okay. We'll take this break. It's Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We'll be right back after this time out. Please stay with us. In case you don't know, this is Journalist Hangout on Sunday, 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. 2 hours. Journalist Hangout every Sunday, 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. Now, Emeka, we're talking about late Chief Lateef Jakonde, you know. LKG. Talking about Jakonde schools, talking about Jakonde housing estates, talking about, you know, so many giant strikes that we can talk about in Lagos State today. Lekki, Ekpe Expressway.
Yes, I witnessed some of those things. I was growing up then in Lagos State. And
he spent 4 years. He spent just 4 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say, you need 8 years to, okay. And a lot of people will be clamoring that they need 8 years to actually, you know, perform very well.
Amoson said we are struggling to even meet match your achievements.
No, you know, if you recall, you know, then there was this acrimonious relationship between the MPN-led federal government, you know, headed by Alhaji Shehu Shagari, and then UPN and MPP governors. So you see, the antagonism was so much, and so UPN and MPP governors now decided that they would teach these guys a lesson, you know, by using progressive ideas to develop their states.
Massive.
If you look at the way they worked that time, you know, there was this relationship between governors of UPN and
UPN now. You had Jakonde in Lagos,
Bisi Onabanjo, you had Adekunle Ajasin, you had Ambusali in Bendel State. Yes, in Bendel State. And you had Jim Obodo, you had Samu Bakwe. Don't forget Samu Bakwe, the best governor so far in the southeast. So far. So, you know, we are talking the southeast then, but of course we can call it in the east then, you know. So these governors, these governors truly practice progressive politics. And you see, because of that, MPN tried to stifle development in these states. So Jakonde now decided, and you saw, of course, you had Jakonde estates and Shagari estates. What brought about it? It was this antagonism. But Jakonde didn't allow any of it to make him fall back from the progressive ideals enunciated by Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I mean, they were the true progressives. They were the honest progressives, not some of the pseudo progressives you have today. These were people. Go and look at why these UPN governors were sentenced, you know, were jailed. You would apologize to them. You will wake them up from the grave and apologize to them for the injustice meted to them, because they were actually victimized for supporting their party. When today you have governors who loot treasuries directly inside government house, but these were governors who made sure that their states were developing. That's why you see they set up state universities. They set up state television stations. You remember then? We had to wait till 4 p.m. We had to wait till 4 p.m. to watch TV. We had to wait till 4 p.m. to watch TV. But they brought state TV. They brought state universities. They brought up a lot of things. They opened roads. They did so many things. And again, you see, Jakonde, even when he was minister under Abacha, even though he was being pilloried and all that, he didn't lose touch with his people back home, with the Southwest. You know, people say certain things he did, how he did this and that and the other. But you see, you cannot accuse Jakonde of stealing. You cannot accuse Jakonde of abandoning his people. You cannot accuse Jakonde of wanting to say, okay, no, we want to be in the mainstream. Jakonde and the other governors, honestly speaking, we need to witness that golden era again.
Okay. We have on the line, Bola is on the line, a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us, Bola.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here virtually.
All right, Bola, what can you tell us about late Chief Lateef Jakonde?
For those of us who were born in Lagos and who schooled in his days as governor, there is an emotional part of us that ascribes any success that we may ever attain, especially those of us who were in secondary school between the late 70s and the early 80s. I was fortunate to have spent the last 3 years of my secondary education and indeed 2 years of my tertiary education in Nigeria in schools that Jakonde literally put his administrative signature on. The last 3 years, my mother, my single parent mother, never had to pay tuition fees anymore. I was given books in all the subjects that I studied. When I finished, I was straight into then Lacoste, then Lagos State College of Science and Technology, now Lagos State Polytechnic, which Jakonde founded anyway, and that was the top of my tertiary education in Nigeria before I emigrated out of Nigeria. But having said that, as a grown-up person, and more so when I started owning the passion to help to dramatically solve the housing problem in Lagos. How could Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria, and indeed the commercial heartland of West Africa, how could it be a seeming outlandish ghetto? And about 6 years ago, when I was going around the world to encourage Nigerian construction experts to let us start a building and construction training school, I had factored in the fact that the students that will pass through that training school would also be teamed up by a group of Nigerians, both in the diaspora and at home, to create an ecosystem that will help solve the housing problem. It is so painful because 2 years ago, I had a private audience with Alhaji Jakonde, private audience. And one of the things I passed to him then was that when we will start commissioning the houses, just in line with the social housing policy for Lagos, I would love that he be the one to commission it. Just when the model units have been finished, to prove that what Jakonde did then, any serious-minded governor can do now. You can produce houses for Lagosians not more than 3 million naira. 1 room, semi-detached, room and living room, and kitchenette. You can produce houses for Lagosians not more than 4 million naira, 2-bedroom semi-detached. Just when he finished, the man passed, and it's painful in many respects to me. You know, these people attended to public administration and governance with a compassionate heart. I remember that on the streets of the ghetto where I was born, where I was raised, Mushi, Jakonde gave us the first public water, pipe-bomb water on our streets. If you could imagine the seeming Jakonde to me, looking back now, and with my exposure to civilizations like public administration in Germany, with my exposure to politics in the United Kingdom, I could see a man who led or who governed with a social market strategy. Look, some of the things they did, I'm not one who goes around trying to biologize or trying to paint any human being as a saint. They have their mistakes too. The quality of education, because of the seeming interventionist methodology that was used, and the fact that they had to contain millions upon millions of pupils and students, the quality of education inevitably nosedived. But you know what? As we speak today, many wouldn't have been educated. Many wouldn't have been able to harness the opportunities that they are predisposed to today, if not because of that policy. Unfortunately, the military truncated his administration. We wouldn't know whether they would have corrected the seeming populism that attended to the initial step out. But as we speak, if Lagos lives for 1,000 years more, the name of Jakonde will keep reverberating because of some things that he did as a compassionate public administrator in those days, which are still positively affecting lives.
Now, let's talk about his background as a journalist. Many people believe that his simplicity owes directly from the fact that as a journalist, he was a public assessor, and so he would very much not want younger journalists to see him show some traits in office that they will be disappointed about. Would you say that his background as a journalist shaped his conduct in office and his life generally?
I tell those who I work with or those that I collaborate with social entrepreneurially, I power a couple of social enterprises, and I tell them that journalism has a way of making you approach problem solving with the attitude of a critic who is given the opportunity to solve a problem. You know, as a journalist, that you are being watched, and because you are being watched, you know that there are some certain standards you cannot afford to compromise. And because you know you are being watched, you know you have to punch harder, faster than the usual punch of an ordinary operator. In a way, and I'm saying this as a biased contributor on this program about Jakonde, coming also from the background of journalism. There's a way that if you're a genuine journalist, if you are a journalist that knows the weight of that title in gold, whenever you are given the opportunity of service to humanity, you know that some people are keeping records of your conduct and you better act well. I think Jakonde had two advantages when he functioned as the replicas of Awolowo between 79 and 83. The two advantages he had were, one, his background in journalism as a recorder who knew he was being recorded, and the fact that he was fortunate to be the governor of Lagos, because then and now the business of Nigeria is the business of Lagos, or the business of Lagos is indeed the business of Nigeria. So there are more resources at the disposal of the governor of Lagos than is equivalent in other producing units.
But now, when you want to look at those landmark projects, and he was able to achieve it in just 4 years. I asked Emeka earlier, and a lot of people will tell you that, oh, you need 7 years, 8 years to make your mark.
To be very honest with you, I'm one who believes that if we could tweak our constitution to just only allow one tenureship gubernatorially and presidentially, I would love it. You know why? Because we've seen from ample examples that when you give governors and presidents the opportunities for second term, we see that they get into a coasting mood. They don't seem to attend. But you know what? We didn't know what Jakonde could have done too, because he was denied the opportunity of serving out his second term in full. But having said that, I really want to believe I really want to believe that he also came into governance in the backdrop of a clean slate, so he could dramatically do so many things. Then states had no broadcasting organizations. He had to create Radio Lagos and he had to create Lagos State Television. And you know, the fire in the set of people who pioneered that station as workers and the chieftains of the station, the fire was making them to give the national behemoth a run for its money. Lagos was just starting its burgeoning of a population, and some of us were in afternoon classes in our schools. In some schools there were 3 sessions: morning, afternoon, and evening sessions. And you know, when Jakonde came, he wanted to eradicate that, and he started building schools like no man's business. Some of the schools, if you really look at the quality of some of the things, they were made possible to get us out of a system that was leading to Golgotha. You couldn't blame them, and yet they were not the most ideal. Let's be very honest with ourselves. But he was able to do it. He came into public governance with the radical conviction that if you know where you are going, with the way we open for you and the ways open for him, and now his legacy is perfected in glory in Lagos.
He was a minister. He served the federal administration of Sani Abacha as works minister. How would you rate his performance as minister of the Federal Republic?
Fantastic question. As a minister, he was in every way a player in the same jersey like he was in Lagos. Roads, bad roads were quickly fixed. He created within the ministry a workforce that was attending to making sure that the level of deterioration of federal government's infrastructural assets, especially public works assets, were not allowed to over-degenerate. Like you mentioned earlier, he went into mass housing. The mass housing in Abuja, he initiated, but you know what? There is a curse, with due respect, and I'm saying this with all degree of sobriety, when Southwestern politicians tend to go in the direction of the federal, want to walk on the boulevard of federal governance. They get their politics wrong. Let's be very honest here. Some Yoruba people listening to me this afternoon, I am an Awoist. I don't believe anybody could be more ideologically Awoist than I am. My social enterprise life today is predicated on my conviction that one must work for the good of the many over the greed of the few, and that is pure Awoism that Jakonde replicated in his own life too. But you know what? When Chief Obafemi Awolowo in 1959 left the Southwest as the premier of the Southwest and went to become the leader of opposition at the federal, he ran himself into a political cul-de-sac that ultimately culminated in his imprisonment. Alhaji Jakonde's greatest political error, looking at the rear view mirror now, was the acceptance of the federal ministership under Abacha, because he forgot that, like in most places that the Brits colonized, look at what is happening in Myanmar now. When you go into collaboration with the army, you will ultimately regret it. And in the case of Jakonde, the politics of how he accepted that offer, which history now tells us that those who told him that he could accept it were the ones who ultimately turned around to use it to stigmatize him. That was actually what punctured the lack public political persona of Lateef Kayode Jakonde, who refused to be a chief anyway, who refused to be a chief because that's one of the sobriquets that journalism gives you. He refused it, so nobody can call him Chief Lateef Jakonde.
Really? Oh, sure. Rebecca?
Yeah, of course. He has spoken very well, eloquently. You know, if you remember, UPN had 5, cardinal programs, and they implement. I just remembered. You had the Lobo states. They call themselves the Lobo states. So they had these things. I also benefited
Lagos,
Ogun, Ondo. I also benefited from free education under Ambrosali in Benin. So in the old Bendel state. So definitely, I think Jakonde. Oh my. We missed a real statesman in the true sense of the word. Yes, a man who knew what development meant.
When you look at today's politicians, you ask yourself whether it is possible to find amongst them someone like Jakonde. It's extremely difficult. Today, politicians still without qualms. And they do not even know how to hide on-hand wealth.
What they don't need.
On-hand wealth, you can't prove that you earn this wealth. And they don't even hide it anymore. So when we look back at the hours of this world, the Mbakwe's of this world, that commitment, that genuine spirit to serve the people, you start scrambling to find that genuine spirit in today's politicians, and that's why it is impossible to forget these people. It's impossible to forget them.
Okay, Bola,
Jakonde worked hard for the Lagos people, and it will live on in the hearts of the people.
Bola, on the final notes, I doubt if a poor man can stand for election like the likes of Chief Jakonde and they will win election. During the time of what's the name of Ajashi, even Bisi Akonde, and even remember our great Lam Adeshina, people like that we know that they didn't come to the office with anything, they didn't have anything, they weren't wealthy. Can we see have people like that?
Fantastic question. We are living in a totally different age now. I remember mocking my mother, late Iyeleja, who came from the heartland of Ijumu, to Lagos. I remember mocking her in those days when every Friday she would go for the party meeting, the World Party meeting of Unity Party of Nigeria. She would contribute, and when she would get home, she would show me her card. Adisa, Bamiwo, Boyawo, register Womi. In those days, people went into politics, giving the best of their resources.
Political parties.
Yes.
Members funded
yes, we can hear you.
Bola, you're on.
Trusting those that they believed were their genuine leaders, and they gave everything they had.
Yes.
Their resources, their time, just about anything. Now, let's be very honest with ourselves. An average Nigerian watching me this moment, an average Nigerian watching this program, do you also partake in politics with a view to getting something from the plutocrats who now finance everything about the party, and you expect them to serve you? We cannot be serving Caesar and be expecting reward from God. There are ways to serve God. God only allowed you that occasionally just give what is Caesar to Caesar, but serve him. But in these days, we have people who want to be serving Caesar and they expect the beneficence of God. You can't get it. This is what we have now is plutocracy.
Oh, thank you, Bola, public affairs analyst. Thank you for your contribution. Late Lateef Jakonde, the former governor of Lagos State. Jakonde will continue to talk about him.
Yes, I don't think this is the last program that we'll do about it. He's thoroughly deserving of all the plaudits
of course
that is getting in debt. It's just unfortunate that as a people we really don't value our own
until
they go to the great beyond.
Yes,
but we must learn to honor people when they are alive, because that's the best way to encourage the living to give their best to their people.
On a final note, one good deed is what rewarding. The governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, is living up to this when he rewarded a doctor working at the General Hospital Monguno. Governor Zulum presented 13.9 million naira as accumulated entitlements and a vehicle to Dr. Isa Akimbodi from Ogun State for not abandoning patients at the hospital despite attacks by Boko Haram fighters. The governor also approved automatic employment for his daughter in the state civil servant. This is not the first time, Jude.
Yes.
Zulum, this is not the first time we will be doing this. Remember that teacher?
Yes, the female teacher from
Yes, that was always punctual.
I met her during my last trip to Borno State in November. I had an interview with her. She's worked in that school for almost 40 years, that primary school. She had not worked anywhere else, just that school. Every morning she would go to work very early.
Islander.
So, for one thing about Governor Zulum is that he is also similar to Jakonde in many ways. He is so populist oriented. He's thinking of the poor people at all times. He's thinking of the poor people. No governor in today's Nigeria gives money, gives petty cash to poor people like this governor, because he remembers that he too is just the son of a poor cleric.
And that's why this job does not mean anything to him. He doesn't carry years about being a governor.
He does not,
the way he dresses.
He does not believe in protocol. He is one governor that is difficult to manage in some ways.
I'm sure
people like this, yes, they will tell. Sometimes I go there, I go to Borno State. I'm telling you, this person sometimes will just wake up. We are going to Bagana.
Yes,
and
conventional.
Bagana, and he's ready to go. One day I'm going to show the picture of the place where he sleeps whenever he goes to Baga. I hope they won't quickly go and repair the place, because I've said so. If you see where he sleeps
as a sitting governor,
if you see, because the guy is just being rebuilt, you can't believe that a governor can go and sleep inside that place, because even you will not agree to sleep there. Me, I will not agree to sleep there, but he's prepared to take the pain. And that's why today in northern Nigeria, when you talk about Buhari, this is the next person. And I'm very certain about this. This is the next person. You see clearly that he has a future. He's not doing all of these things for people to praise him. It just comes naturally because he hates to see poor people suffer.
We know some governors in Nigeria.
He hates to see poor people suffer.
Voted in, they are sitting governors in Nigeria, but they don't live in Nigeria officially.
No, and this one,
they don't even live in their state.
I doubt if this man steps out.
What?
No, maybe
when
only
they
to
went
Abuja.
to Egypt for medical.
As they step out of Nigeria.
When they went for Egypt for medical this checkup, because if we say that, they will say no. He traveled to Egypt the other day. So let's clear that.
But he's always on ground.
He's always there. Do you know that? Look, this man. Look at what happened. Because he's prepared to support people. And I have also offered that advice that, look, you built excellent schools, you and your boss, Kashim Shettima. Although Kashim now calls him my boss. You know? Kashim calls, yes, that's what he calls him now, because he's the governor.
Yeah,
he's not prepared to share. He's not prepared to share.
I remember.
He's a very sensible person.
He's not prepared to share. Talk again.
He's not prepared to share limelight with the governor.
So that there won't be conflicts.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's the way they are relating, and the mutual respect is there. Yes, he's not interested in that anymore. He's a smart man. So they would think the governor, Kashim Shettima, ordered that this Yoruba man should be placed on contract since 2016.
After he retired?
Yes, place him on contract. Do you know, due to civil service shenanigans, they did not formalize this contract, but he continued to work, giving voluntary service
Free of charge.
Even voluntary service. This is a man that was said to have been kidnapped once by Boko Haram. He still went back there. For anybody to agree to work in Monguno, you are taking a big risk. That means you must make up your mind that you won't be traveling frequently. Because the Maiduguri-Monguno highway is one of the most dangerous in our country.
And you can die anytime, since
yes.
you are into saving people.
Yes, they don't want health workers. If they get you, they'll kidnap you and you are likely to die.
Or you work in their camp.
Now, yes, they will use you as doctor in their
doctor.
camp. You know that medical doctor in the army, they kidnapped him and took him away. Now, after all these years, Zulum had the story that the directive that the former governor gave has not been implemented. So he ordered that they should pay him his money in arrears. That's what came to 13.9 million.
Oh, okay. Since 2016.
Since 2016, civil service. That's why Obasanjo calls the civil service evil service. You know? Wicked people.
13.9 million.
Yes, it's the arrears. It's the arrears.
Of his entitlements.
Yes, the man, he now said, okay, the contract, you should now be paying him monthly in the execution of that contract. You understand that you should now be paying him monthly in the execution of that contract. So then, of course, that car gift. Zulum will always come around.
To Kumbo Islander.
Yes. He will always come around to make you do things that will give you joy. This governor went to Ngala. He found only a doctor working for an NGO on duty at the hospital in Ngala. The claims that the civil servants were making, the government doctors, so their claim was that, the area was not safe. He then said, okay, how come this other person who is not a staff of our government, how come he's able to sit here and work? You can imagine a governor visiting a place and finding only one doctor on duty. He then decided that I was going to suspend the other doctor. So he is a hands-on person. You never can tell what he will do the next moment.
If all our governors, if they are like Zulum, most states would have made progress.
Life will be much better. He's not a totally perfect person. Yes, he has made certain statements that didn't go down well with Nigerians, but on the whole, I think he's a man who tries to remain connected to the people. But my appeal will be that these doctors should be protected. Because, you know, the Boko Haram people, they are evil people. They are they are wicked people. So that they don't see
they
this
will be aware of this
and try to harm this man.
I'll be looking for the man.
For somebody to have dedicated, they've done it to other people. There was the owner of a filling station, I understand, who was praised by the former governor and eventually was killed, you know. So things like that, you know, such evil people will not want a man like this to remain as a standing example. And even within the civil service, some of the people who may have frustrated the payment of the entitlements would also not want all this acclaim around the man. So I think it's commendable. Whenever government thinks of giving out national awards, I think such a man should be remembered. He should be remembered, he should be celebrated, you know, because he is exceptional.
Julie, you know, when we started the program, we started by, you know, we raised an alarm of what's happening in Oyo State. Now, this one is an example now.
Yes.
This one is not from Borno. It's from Oyo State.
From Oyo? It's from Ogun State.
It's a Yoruba man. He has been, his family will be there.
Yes.
We have
his daughter
there.
Was giving...
Do you understand? We have children there. We have part of what we are talking about.
Yes.
That, look.
That's why we are saying that for us, Nigeria is an indivisible entity. You can't as an American be thinking that America will break up or that one state out of the 50 states of America will go a separate way. The Constitution says clearly that it is not possible. And that if you want to do it, then be ready for military action. It's inconceivable. All this talk that, we will go our separate ways, this and that, you even see it when people are arguing on social media. People lose their heads quickly whether they are Hausa, Fulani, or Yoruba, or Igbo, they lose their heads quickly, and they can say, oh, I think it's the best thing is for us to divide this thing. Is it that easy to divide?
And people are so excited
now to talk
about Oduduwa Republic.
Are you for real? What are you talking about?
Yeah. But for
we
me,
cannot, every time we have a little misunderstanding, we forget that we are one people. We are one people. You go to the farthest part of the north, you see Yorubas doing their business there.
Emeka's people.
Let's even start with the Yorubas. For the Igbos,
that is like
for the Igbos, everyone knows that, look, they are the Jews of the Nigerian nation.
Yes, commerce, yeah.
Any land that you go to that you fail to see an Igbo man,
run away.
you better take to your heels. Look, in my own village, there is a guy called Kenneth. In my village, they don't like it when I say village. Okay, in my small town, there is a guy called Kenneth. Kenneth has become more or less like, he's an Igbo man. He has become more or less like the Dangote of the place. Not in terms of riches, but in terms of business. Kenneth will do POS business for you. It's still the same Kenneth that you want to buy cosmetics, is selling. You want to buy food stuff, he's selling. He's the jack of all trades. Everyone goes to him. You can imagine leaving the east, as far as the east is, to come to a place, a rustic village, to simply make a living. That is the spirit.
After 40 years now, you now be asking where is Kenneth's children from.
Then you'll be saying, no, that Yoruba is not one of you. You see, some of these foolish things that we hear, every time we have a reason to disagree with people, that's when they'll say, oh, Jide is a tribalist. Jide was born in Zaria, schooled in the north, served this nation in the north, mingles with Northerner, speaks the language. Is today now, you now say Jide is a tribalist. People must be told that all these rhetorics that they are coming up with will not lead us anywhere. Look at this man, somebody, you know, that kind of person, all his life is Borno State. You can't even, maybe even his children have not visited home in decades.
Yes.
His life is that place. As far as he's concerned, that's his second home. And people, Nigerians should be allowed wherever they want to make their livelihood. They should be left there. No one should harass any Nigerian to say, no, you are not one of us. You are not KRNN. You are not one of us. No, it's rubbish.
Meaning?
That you are not our brother. Or you are an unbeliever on account of the fact that it's a Christian and it's RNA. No. Let people, that's the way we can be greater as a nation. That's why I like football. When football comes now, all of this rubbish that you hear people talking about.
Oh no, maybe he's a lipo player. No, that's not the first goal.
Yes, we see ourselves as one. They will not say, oh, this Igbo man, as long as he's scoring, they are happy.
Oh, they will not say, oh, Nigeria.
Musa is an Arewa boy.
Okay,
he's our captain, and he's leading from the front, he's scoring goals for us. Nobody will remember. That's what football does for us. So I hope there can be a football tournament now that would distract us from the rubbish that is happening in Oyo State and other places. We can't have a nation where there's so much tension, where people are scared, people think that they will be killed where they are making ends meet. And we need each other. I saw baskets of tomatoes destroyed in Ibadan. I mean, this thing shouldn't be happening. That's somebody's means of livelihood.
Houses,
you have destroyed. People shots destroyed. How do you want, and you know our government will never successfully even rehabilitate these people?
No,
it should not be happening.
On their own.
Even if money is approved, it will be diverted.
The young people, the masses shouldn't be killing themselves. All in the name of, oh, I'm Yoruba, oh, now some man is not one of us. No, this thing should not be happening. We must do our best to bring down the tension, beginning in Oyo, Ogun, Even in the east.
Ondo?
In Edo.
Even in the east.
Edo is a
and
hot spot, yes.
We must do our best to bring in the tension, because if we want to even defeat insecurity in our country, we must come together as one people. Let's stop all the nonsense that, oh, it's not one of us, it's not...
even you discover that even within the Easterners, you see people discriminating against that time.
Of course.
Yes,
of course. There were governors who sacked
wanted to implement it.
He had to tell some people to leave.
And this is somebody from Ogun State who has not been kicked out. Who has from Ogun State who has not been kicked out from the state civil service. Even after he retired, still kept on contract. But look at it, you will find such people who have retired, who are still useful. They'll be thrown away, so that politicians can now bring in their own people who are not even qualified, who cannot even write a sentence in English. They just pack their people into the civil service in the state, and then we have a federal character, we have quota system, and we're just entrenching, mediocrity. We're entrenching mediocrity, and it shouldn't happen. But you see, some of these things that also bring about division, I should quickly chip this in, stem from injustice. People should be treated fairly. Government should not be about any particular ethnic group or any nationality or any religion. There should be fairness. Treat people fairly. Give positions to people who merit it. If people deserve scholarships, give it to them. Let's stop all this discrimination, because if you cut the skin of anybody, it's still blood that will come out of it, and it's red. There is all of this, injustice. Injustice breeds anger.
Our people need to be patient. I've seen riots happen based on lack of patience. I was in Kano when we had the riots in 1995. It started in Abakarimi Market in Sabongeri. Just two individuals were fighting. And who were the people fighting? An Igbo man and someone from northern Cameroon.
Not even in Nigeria.
Yes, and it led to bloodbath.
Misinformation.
Bloodbaths. Somebody will go out, they've killed our brother. Like we are hearing now. People have no grasp of what happened in Oyo. They're already saying, they are killing people in the southwest. They are killing people in this place. People don't want to hear such things. And people too, who cause bloodshed to happen, they should know that they are brothers in other parts of the country.
And they should be prosecuted too. Why are people
not?
No,
we are even saying government. Part of what we recommend for you is that government should get to the heart of what happened and punish the culprits.
Yes.
If we don't punish them, this kind of attacks will not stop. Then I saw, I think, a Northern Youth Group telling governors to bring in people, bring in Northerners from the southwest states. This is rubbish.
Where are you going to accommodate them?
This is rubbish. For what? They have the right to stay there. What we should be recommending is that those governors should work with their colleagues in those states to ensure that nothing happens to Northerners. They are not harmed in their respective states of abode. Not to be saying people. In fact, when you start seeing people being brought in trailers that one alone is tension. So this is not a suggestion. If you have no sensible suggestion to make, don't worsen the tension in our land.
Exactly what you said. I remember when there was a talk about Fashola, relocating traders from Mile 12. It generated tension, and then Kwankwaso came, met with Fashola. Even when Peter Obi was governor, he played that kind of role too when government had issue with traders at Ladiko and all of that. These governors, there should be this interaction. But the problem is governors want to sit in their states like imperial, majesties. And they don't want to move around.
And their utterances are not helping matters.
They are not helping matters. They should consult. That's why, to some extent, you don't really blame the president. Because the governors themselves, what are they doing?
Work.
They should do their work.
Some of these things that they are running to meet the president for, they can solve those problems themselves. You leave a situation to degenerate, and you allow non-state actors like Sunday Igboho to seize the initiative from you, you know? So
and then there are some people who are not as popular as the Sunday Igboho who are also taking charge of territories.
Yes, so everyone is trying to carve a territory for himself in our great purpose. We have to repeat our appeal to our people. Our people in the north, they should remain calm. Whatever people are saying, they should not respond to it by taking the law into their hands.
Okay.
And people in the south too, I think, or you and other places, we advise them to remain calm. Don't take the law into your hands. Okay. They are Nigerian. Do not attack him because he's your brother.
I have Abdul from Zaria.
Hello.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Abdul.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. I just want to contribute to the topic.
Quickly, Abdul.
Okay. Regards the magnanimous activity of the governor, Governor Zulum, my plea is that the remaining 35 state governors are not doing well. They have to at least show example. Some people are in their second tenure. This man only spent, 2 or 3 years, and everybody knows him, even beyond Nigeria.
Yes.
They have to do well, because if every governor is doing this, what he did is not only it's not only reward for excellence, but unity. Because the governor, he gave something, is not from here. And this point in time, we are divided. And these things, we at least will regain the unity of this country, because the unity of this country, let's be frank, is threatened at this point in time.
Yes, you are right.
So other governors, 35 remaining governors, have to at least look for way to do things that will bring the unity in the other part of the state.
Yes.
All this threatening people leaving my state and all that, these things he did is just to regain the unity of the country. And look at what we are facing just now. So this is my advice for other governors, to do at least copy from what he's doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Abdul, for that wonderful
contribution. Yes, sir.
No state can be singularly built by the indigenous. You need settlers to develop your state. You can imagine Lagos without settlers. People came to help build Lagos. So that's the attitude that we should have.
And you know, there will be people like that doctor in Borno State, in other states, who have just been conveniently shooed away or conveniently ignored. Government should,
thank you for your contribution
about development. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. And the master himself.
Been interesting.
Well, thank you for your contribution to the last 120 minutes. And it's Journalist Hangout on Sunday. I told you earlier, Journalist Hangout every Sunday, 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. It's 2 hours. Join us tomorrow for regular edition of the program at 5 p.m. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TBC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Ozuwang, urging you to be safe and bye for now.